Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Leela Rhodes and I'll be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us here at NetCom Learning, a market leader in promoting lifelong learning, training, and talent development solutions. We are very excited to host today's webinar, 5 Ways to Enable Business Resilience with Multi-Cloud Networking. And presenting today's topic is Jagpreet Singh, and Jagpreet is a Cisco trainer with over 9 years of experience in network design and implementation, operations support, project management experience or expertise, as well as technical leader. He also possesses working knowledge on perimeter security solutions like Cisco ASA, Cisco Firepower, Cisco NGFW, NGIPS, etc. Now, please bear in mind that this is just an overview of a very robust topic, but we do offer a collection of technical and business courses that can be tailored towards the specific requirements of your group. And if you are interested in a further discussion, you can make a learning consultant with you can make an appointment with our learning consultants through our website at www.netcomlearning.com. Today's session is also being recorded, so you will get a free access to that recording the next 24 hours via email. NetCom Learning helps customers build innovative learning organizations by achieving a smarter workforce, adapting to change, and driving growth. And we do this with a broad catalog of offerings, developing customized learning plans, and our global delivery capabilities. Since 1998, we have been empowering organizations with our managed learning services to help them reach optimal performance results and address challenges. We have 9 practice areas in which we specialize, and they encompass people, process, and technology training. Today's presentation is from the networking practice area. NetCom Learning also offers a comprehensive training portfolio for networking courses, and our upcoming classes include various trainings on Cisco Cloud Consumer Security, implementing secure solutions with virtual private networks, automation for Cisco security solutions, and many more. Also, private training to teams is available, and those learning plans can be customized to the specific needs of that audience. You can also access a variety of network marketing assets, such as the free 1-hour training, free on-demand training, and blogs by clicking on the available webinar handout. And these offerings can also be found with a simple search on our website at www.netcomlearning.com. In this webinar, we will explore about how to ensure secure access to multi-cloud applications, extend network policy and governance, and future networking directions, and much more. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the logistics before we get started today. To start with, you do have the option to adjust your window size to your liking. You can simply hit the escape key and find the zoom button on the top left corner of your GoToWebinar viewer. Everyone has been muted except for our presenters, so you can feel free to submit any questions you have for the presenters in the questions panel, and we will address them at the end of the session today. Also, to get the best out of today's session, we've included the slides, courses we've talked about, and the marketing assets in the handout section of your GoToWebinar viewer, and you can refer to those at any time to get a better understanding of today's topic. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass the time over to Jagpreet to present today's topic. Let me make this screen shareable for you. There you go. You should be able to share now.
Thanks, Leela.
Thank you for joining us.
Right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. So like Leela said at the start, today we're looking at a quick overview for 5 ways to enable business resilience with multi-cloud networking. And the idea being simple, right? Users are no longer stationary, neither are applications. They are either on-premises or in the cloud. Users are accessing these applications from mobile phones, laptops, etc. Right? So they're always on the move. They're not sitting at their on-premises office workspace where they have a great internet connection and a secure connection to access applications in the cloud. So how do we make sure that we can extend branch-like capabilities to the cloud and leverage everything in terms of security, link redundancy, right, and multi-cloud access all at the same time? So the answer is Cisco's SD-WAN solution. Now, if you've heard of Cisco's SD-WAN solution before, you've probably heard it in the context of connecting multiple brick and mortar branches to each other, connecting them back to the data center, being able to leverage multiple links to do that, right? Being able to securely use open internet to send traffic from one site to another. But the use case really expands now to multi-cloud. So today, we'll be looking at two prime use cases for this application. The first one is Cloud OnRamp with SaaS, that's software as a service. So what can the solution do when you don't have a router or any virtual instance on the other end, when I can't form secure IPsec tunnels with the other end? So example, when I'm trying to access Facebook or Salesforce or Office 365, right? So what can the solution do to make sure that the user experience is great, even though we don't have an end-to-end monitoring capability available, since we don't have a router at the other end? And then, of course, the big one, infrastructure as a service. So what has Cisco built into their new solution with multi-cloud networking? How does that let you connect to workloads in AWS, in Azure, and also on Google Cloud, right? Having said that, let's really dive into it. So like I said at the start, users are mobile and so are the applications, right? The developers start developing these applications in AWS because it's easy, right? They can spin up a few virtual machines or a few instances and they're good to go. Now, when they really start scaling out that application, they all of a sudden realize that the bill's too much. They need to scale some back and move them to an on-premises data center, which might be a big CapEx cost, but in the long run is better operationally. So now you have half of your applications in the cloud, half in the private DC, and users everywhere. And users are no longer just simple browser-based laptop users, right? You could be smart devices accessing these applications. Devices in a manufacturing plant, in a packaging plant. Devices which even if stopped for 10 minutes can cause millions. So how do you make sure that these applications are accessible to these IoT devices at all times with complete link redundancy, while at the same time reducing your OpEx cost? So you use SD-WAN. So today, enterprises, 93% of them have embraced a multi-cloud strategy. They're no longer tied to the private data center or even to one cloud provider, right? They're moving workloads around from one place to another place. The infrastructure as a service spend is projected to increase by 24% by 2022, right? And we've kind of seen the peak of that over the last year. Right, perfect. So challenges with the multi-cloud deployment. First one is complexity, right? It's too complex to have multiple cloud strategies. And then on top of that, each cloud console is different, right? AWS works in a different way, has different services, right? They call their host networks VPCs. Azure calls them VNet, even though they might be the same thing. But if you like really pull back the curtain, and you'll see that they're not, right? They're essentially different things. And it's the way you connect these workloads back to your users are also different for different clouds. So now that begs the question, can I have a single dashboard from where I could automate all cloud networking and connect my users either at my offices or at small and home offices, or at shared workplaces, or somebody sitting at a Starbucks someplace, to these applications securely? And while I do that, the experience of accessing these applications cannot be compromised, right? I want link redundancy. Even if you are connecting these applications over the open internet, link redundancy, security while accessing these applications. So if I'm accessing applications in AWS over the open internet, how do I make that secure? One way is complicated VPN solutions and deploying virtual firewalls on your public clouds. But again, not scalable, right? Requires an agent to be installed on every endpoint. And What about IoT devices? How do I connect them? Right. So security is a big concern. Experience is a big concern. And then consumption is a big concern. Because when you build applications for an on-premises deployment, you had an upper limit you could expand to. After that, you had to go back into CapEx costing and analyzing for the next year, right? You pass a budget for this year for your data center, and that's how much I'm expanding. But with now multiple clouds, sometimes you need a model that you can pay as you grow. Right? So now Cloud OnRamp with SD-WAN addresses all of these challenges. It is automated, self-service. So you just need access to one portal, which is the vManage, which is Cisco's centralized orchestrator to deploy SD-WAN solutions, right? It will, on your behalf, talk to all other consoles. So as far as you're concerned, you're following a simple 4-step workflow to deploy these routers, these virtual Cisco routers, in any of the 3 clouds. And then the vManage takes care of connecting these routers, A, to the WAN network, and B, to your host VPCs or host VNets in the data center, right? Normalized for multi-cloud, which means no different workflows for different cloud providers. Same workflow, same method, same GUI, right? Of course, we optimize the SaaS experience. There's a pay-as-a-grow option out there in the marketplace for each of the 3 cloud providers. And then there's ecosystem partnership, which is a huge advantage to other competitors, because others could deploy a solution in any public cloud that they want, but there's no real engineering integration. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a few minutes. But first up, Cloud OnRamp for SaaS, right? So if you have users at a remote site, and you're trying to access applications like Dropbox, Office 365, Salesforce, these are on the open internet. I don't have any way of monitoring those links. All I can do is probably a ping test, right? But I can't guarantee SLA for that traffic. I can't tell you how much jitter, latency, or packet loss percentage you're going to experience when accessing Office 365. And on top of that, I could have multiple service providers. I could have ISP1, ISP2. I could do a backhaul to my data center and then access the application. Which path is the best path to access Office 365? Well, an SD-WAN router can detect that for you. It's a simple 3-step process, which is all happening in the backend, and you don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is enable the feature. First thing, it does a DNS request and resolves the SaaS application DNS, and does this DNS request over every available internet link, even the backhaul link, right? And then it does quality probing by sending HTTP and HTTPS messages over each service provider to that application. Now, the router is not going to do this for all SaaS applications. It's just going to do this for the applications that you configure that are important to your users. And finally, it comes up with a quality of experience score. And based on that, it routes the traffic over the available internet path, right? So everything is done from the router. It performs the DNS resolution, right? It runs deep packet inspection to make sure that the DNS query is intercepted and it knows which best path to take. And then finally, it also does the HTTP ping. Okay. So this is an example of 2 different workflows. So on the left, you have a router which is connected to 2 ISPs and can detect that ISP2 has high loss and latency, and therefore uses ISP1 to send traffic to Office 365. In the second case, the router is actually connected to a WAN gateway. So that could be another Cisco router deployed at your data center, right? So I have a local internet exit point. And then the alternative is to backhaul the traffic to my data center and then use the ISP2 at the DC. So if you configure the DC as a possible internet exit, it will not only monitor the latency over ISP2, it'll add the latency over this yellow MPLS link, this IPsec tunnel, back to the data center. And if together the latency and loss is less than the primary ISP, it'll prefer the backhaul connection. Right? So dual DI, single DI, all of that is available. Now, I'm going to skip the part of calculating of how the router comes to a quality of experience score, but I wanted you to have this. So I've not removed it from the deck, and it's there for your reference, but it's very simple to understand. Right? We're doing a regular probe over a set time limit and then calculating the average. And then based on that average, you get a quality of experience score. And you can make it more robust or make it more sensitive by just simply adjusting the time limit. You know, how over what period of time do you want to calculate this average? Right. So like I said, works for dual DIA if you had two ISP providers. Right? We can calculate loss and delay over both of them, and then automatically perform failover in case the primary provider had performance degradation. Again, fully automated. Okay. And then, of course, you could have dual gateways. With dual gateways, that means I could either send it to a regional data center or back all the way back to my primary data center, whichever data center provides me better internet access for that SaaS application. And finally, there's inbuilt security as well, right? Instead of routing the traffic to the destination SaaS application directly, you could send it to Cisco Umbrella. So if you're not familiar with Umbrella, I know that's not part of the discussion today, but how can we talk about cloud resiliency without talking about cloud security? Right? So Umbrella lets you build simple IPsec tunnels out of the box with the Cisco solution. And you can now implement things like cloud firewall, cloud web proxy, so secure internet gateway, multi-cloud access broker, and then, of course, DNS-based cloud security. Right? If you have other solutions and you're trying to use Umbrella, you would have to create these IPsec tunnels and GRE tunnels from scratch. Right? But with Cisco's SD-WAN solution and Cisco Umbrella, this integration is built out of the box. I'm not kidding you, it's 3 clicks, and you have IPsec tunnels up with your nearest cloud Umbrella setup. So you could be in Singapore, you could have sites in Australia, you could have them in North America, you could have them in Europe, and it could connect to the primary Umbrella, which is the nearest one, and it could also form IPsec tunnels with a backup Umbrella of your choosing, right? A backup cloud Umbrella cloud provider of your choosing, so that if your primary were to ever go down, you would have the backup ready. Now, cloud on-ramp for IaaS and multi-cloud, right? This is what we came for. So AWS, Azure, Google are all leading cloud providers. Cisco now has their new Catalyst 8000V virtual router available in all 3 clouds. This router was created for SD-WAN and supports high throughputs, right? We're talking nothing that you've ever seen on a virtual router from any OEM or any vendor before this, right? So some of you might know, Cisco used to have the CSR Cloud Services Router 1000V available in these clouds. Well, it's time for the big guns, right? So the 8000V is capable of connecting to multiple transit gateways in AWS, multiple vWAN connections, right? And multiple direct connections on Google Cloud as well, all automated from the vManage. Okay, so let's take a look at the public cloud, for example. All transits within the public cloud are automated from the vManage, from the SD-WAN. We now have the capability of connecting to the AWS Transit Gateway. Therefore, you can now leverage that fat pipe from your data center up to AWS that you've paid for over the SD-WAN solution. What's the big advantage? Well, remember AWS, even over a transit gateway and a direct connect, only lets you use 100 BGP routes. How are you supposed to run a multi-site enterprise with only 100 BGP routes allowed to connect to AWS, where the majority of your application development is taking place? The answer is you set up SD-WAN, You run an overlay routing protocol, and you do away with that limitation. You get full visibility into inter-regional transit traffic and telemetry due to the TGW Network Manager, which integrates back with the vManage. Again, you don't have to go to a separate dashboard. The Cisco vManage is polling and collecting this information for you already, right? And now you can use the TGW to connect to the host VPCs as well. So for those of you who've been using this before, I'm sorry, just a quick audio check. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Thanks, Lena. Okay. So the other advantage is consistent policy and segmentation, right? So what do I mean by that? Going to get to that in just a second. But here are the big key benefits of implementing multi-cloud with SD-WAN. First one, automated infra, right? You don't have to worry about a different policy for AWS, different one for Azure, different one for Google, right? It's the same workflow, same automation tool. Policy control. So if I want to advertise some routes to the cloud and block some routes from the cloud to be advertised to my branches, I could do that. Again, I don't have to know how to do that on the AWS console or the Google console. I just have to do that from SD-WAN. And that way I can make sure that the finance business unit can only access their application and the sales business unit can only access their application, irrespective of whether they're on premises or in AWS, Azure, or Google. Finally, one management panel. You reduce the OpEx. How do you do that? Well, we can bundle links for you. So you could buy 10, 15, 3, 4, how many ever internet links for a branch location. And then we can make sure that traffic is being sent over all available links. So we do equal cost load balancing across all available links. And you effectively utilize the transits to the VPCs and the VNets. And finally, enhanced visibility. The vManage is polling everything from loss latency and jitter to top applications which are using your WAN connecting to these apps, top users at your branch locations, bandwidth utilization, and of course, the quality of experience score. How well is your application performing in the network? Okay, so other key advantages are two major use cases are connecting your branch to the cloud, right? And then writing the backbone of the cloud services provider to connect the two regions with each other. And then, of course, you could scale that to branches which might not be in the same region. So US West and APAC don't have to talk to each other directly if they don't want to. If you don't want to pay for those IPsec tunnels or connectivity, you could just connect them to their regional cloud service provider and then just use the CSP's backbone to connect them to each other. Okay. So high-level design options. I could configure a cloud gateway for AWS and Azure. I could do COR for IaaS, so Cloud OnRamp for IaaS, or I could do Cloud OnRamp for multi-cloud, where I know that I'll be using not just using AWS, but multiple other providers, right? And connect them to each other. So 17.5, by the way, is already out. So everything I'm showing you today is already in production, ready to go. Okay. All right. So here's a quick snapshot of what the multi-cloud automation panel looks like on the Cisco vManage. So it's as simple as entering your cloud credentials so that the vManage can get the API token and authenticate on the cloud console. Then you create a Cisco Cloud Gateway, right? You discover the host VPCs and VNets. So as soon as vManage has access to your console, it can figure out all your workloads, your applications which have been deployed in that cloud. So AWS calls those host VPCs, and Azure calls those host VNets. And now we can map these VPCs or VNets to the Cisco router's LAN segment to then be advertised over the WAN using secure IPsec tunnels. And then you can map branch networks to these VPCs. So I can make sure that branch 1 through 10 access VPC 1, branch 2 through 11 through 20 accesses VPC 2. So we could build a completely segmented network. You could even have two users sitting on the same IP pool, same subnet, or similar subnet, but two different VRFs, not be able to access the same application in AWS because of end-to-end segmentation. The SD-WAN solution is capable of segmenting users and transferring that segmentation across the WAN with no input from the service provider. Right? It doesn't matter if you're doing this over MPLS, Direct Connect, Internet, 4G, 5G, right? A serial connection, right? So any connection that you can find, we can connect to two sites to each other, right? Completely securely and completely segmented from each other. Okay. So the problem with AWS was the current implementation for Cloud OnRamp did not support multi-cloud, did not support the transit gateway. That's been fixed. Now you can have a transit gateway in the middle of the host VPCs and the transit VPC where our Cisco routers sit. So the advantage, you can use the increased throughput of a transit gateway, as much as 10 gigs of throughput. Right? You have ready cloud routers. All you have to do is define your AWS account, define the host VPCs you want to connect them to, and that's it. And then hit the deploy button. Awesome. So this is a high-level diagram of what it would look like of mapping different host VPCs in different regions with a Cisco SD-WAN solution connecting all the way back to your private data center, your branches, and your remote branches, right? Now, can I attach different VPCs to different VRFs? This is another big use case irrespective of if it's AWS or Azure. You can now make sure that host VPC 1 belongs to VRF 1. Host VPC 2 belongs to VRF 2. So it's the same example. I can make sure that my finance users can only access finance applications in VPC 1, and my marketing users can only access their marketing applications in VPC 2. Okay. Now, the same thing applies to Azure as well. So this is the page where you map your VPCs to specific VRFs on AWS. Oh, sorry, on the Cisco SD-WAN solution. Okay. So inter-region communication is also now allowed. This is something that even other cloud providers don't allow today, but you can do that with Cisco SD-WAN routers. If you have workloads sitting in different regions, AWS will give you limited bandwidth between them. But if you create GRE tunnels on the Cisco router, then you can bypass that problem. Right? Okay. So the performance and scale numbers are here for your reference. I'm just going to leave them in the deck. We don't have to go over numbers today. Right? And now you can do the same thing with GCP. Starting 17.4, it's already out there. And so that's starting 17.5 and 17.6, you get complete integration with, just like you have today with Azure and AWS. Okay, and this is a high-level design of how or what this would look like. So you have the virtual C8000V routers deployed in the WAN VPC in the Google Cloud, right, which is then doing BGP peering with the workloads in Google Cloud. And essentially, you get all the same use cases, except for mapping this to separate VRFs. That's not there today with GCP, but that's very high on Cisco and Google's backlog. And the big part here is Cisco is not working on this independently. They're working in conjecture with Google. So it's true engineering integration. Finally, all the same use cases for Azure. And the big advantage with Azure is the vWAN, right? We have complete direct integration with NVA in vWAN Hub. That means the Cisco CSR router or the Catalyst 8000V router connects directly with the vWAN. This is very similar to connecting with the transit gateway in AWS. And because we connect with the vWAN, it allows for similar use cases. You can use the global backbone of Azure to connect your sites to each other. So I don't have to worry about Australia trying to form an IPsec tunnel with my site in North Carolina, right? I could just connect them to their regional Azure hubs and then just have the Azure hubs talk to each other. This is something that I've personally implemented across for 3 large customers who are spread in 3 different continents, and it works great, right? A simple SD-WAN policy fixes the age-old problem of having those global MPLS providers, talking to the BTs of the world and having them connect your sites to each other. Okay, so finally, I'm going to go ahead and close on key points for Azure, which are we now have integration with vWAN. It connects with the Azure workloads. You can use the Azure backbone for workload connectivity, and you get end-to-end metrics and policies because everything is managed from the Cisco vManage dashboard. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I know that was a lot, but let's pause, see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Wonderful. I know it is so much information to get through and in such a limited amount of time. Before we do get to our questions today, we are going to hear from Chitra. She is our product manager, and she's going to introduce some promotions and webinar related courses. So now is the perfect time for you guys to go ahead and start thinking over what you want to ask most and get that into the questions panel. Chitra, are you with us?
Yes, and thank you so much.
Okay. I'm making you the presenter right now.
Yep, and I've got it. Do let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I hope all of you all enjoyed the session with Jagpreet today, and I really enjoyed it thoroughly. I love that. In fact, I'm very curious about Cisco 8000 router and probably reach out to him separately on that front. But going forward, from the Cisco point, we at NetCom have some wonderful options coming forth to you. So the best way to go and check what we have to offer is log on to netcomlearning.com. And from there, go on to the Cisco page. You will end up with a list of all our wonderful options. We have some, I don't know if you can see this, but we have an ebook that's completely free and totally available to you. So please go ahead, download it, read through. It's a lot of information on some of the Cisco tracks. What are the skills that you can upskill on yourself and the certifications that's available to you. A couple of other things, we do have some e-learning content that's also available. That is, if you're interested, all you have to do is click here. It'll take you onto the e-learning page. Go down, choose the course, and get yourself registered. That's the most easiest of all. I mean, what else can you ask for? The other option that we have is in case your organization has Cisco learning credits, then we are happy to share that we can help you with training using them. So all you have to do is click here, go onto the CLC page, fill in the form, share the information on what is the count of learner count that you want to use, and we will take care of the scheduling of courses out for you. Other than this, from the webinar front, in case you're looking out for them, please go on to the webinar page, which is under the resource section. We have 3 webinars scheduled in the next 3 months. In the month of September, we have something that is purely from the networking perspective. If you're interested in CCNA, then that's where you need to go. If you're looking for security, then October is the month for you. And if you're looking for DevNet, then it'll be November. I hope what I have shared here has been helpful. At any point of time, if you need anything beyond this, please feel free to write to us. We are more than happy to help. I also have shared these links as part of the handouts. In case you do not have them, again, just message us and we'll be more than happy to share them out. Thank you, and Leela, back to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will go ahead and jump right into our questions. Our first one is no question, just a very good presentation. Thank you. And let me share my screen. There we go. Let's see. Our next question is, would there be complete scalability in all three popular public clouds directly from SD-WAN?
Yes, that's correct. So it'll be a single dashboard to manage all three of them: Google, AWS, and Azure. In fact, that's already running today.
Wonderful. Let's see. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a catch in my throat. Our next question is, how will the solution meet any segmentation needs?
Right. So like I was mentioning in the deck, the SD-WAN solution gives you the capability of putting users into different VRFs, right, into different routing contexts. And then we can stretch those routing contexts from one site to another. So similarly, we can stretch them from a branch to a public cloud. Essentially, the example that I gave, making sure that one department can only access their applications in the cloud and nothing else. I hope that.
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were done. Yes, thank you. Let's see, it looks like we've got a couple more questions. If you guys do have any questions, go ahead and get them put in now. Once those questions are out, we'll go ahead and wrap up this session today. Our next question we have is this transport agnostic in the way we connect to the public clouds?
Absolutely, yes. So typically, we would connect to the public clouds using an open internet connection. But if you're a customer who's using direct connect from AWS or an express route from VNet, from Azure, or if you've have private MPLS connections back into the public cloud, irrespective of the underlay, we could connect to the Cisco routers deployed in the transit VPC and form IPsec tunnels. As long as there's IP reachability, this could be done.
Wonderful. Let's see. One last question, and I think we'll go ahead and wrap up today. Can multiple regions connect using the public cloud backbone?
Oh yes, that's a great. That's what we covered towards the end there. Yeah, one big use case is, like I said, I don't have to make sure that the regions have, spoke sites have to talk to each other. They could just talk to their regional public cloud, and then we could use the public cloud backbone to connect those regions to each other.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It looks like we are out of questions for the day. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time to present this topic. We're going to go ahead now and launch a quick poll to find out how many people might be interested in taking some additional training. In addition to what we presented today, we have a lot of informative webinars that are coming up. So please go to www.netcomlearning.com/webinars/ to register for any of those. Thank you all for joining us today. If you do come up with any additional questions, you can feel free to send them to us at webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We hope that you found today's webinar to be very informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us very soon. Also, feel free to tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us, and have a wonderful day.